Dr. Rathod, Pope's an essay on man posits that humans have a specific place in the great chain of being. Could you elaborate on how Pope conceptualizes this hierarchy?
Certainly, Pope envisions the universe as a hierarchical structure where every entity from inanimate objects to humans and eventually to God holds a predetermined place. This great chain of being suggests that humans should embrace their position as part of a divine plan, a notion encapsulated in his famous line, "Whatever is right."
That sounds quite deterministic. Some might argue it overlooks the complexity of human suffering. How does Pope address the moral and ethical dimensions of this perspective?
He ties human limitations to moral responsibility, emphasizing that while humans possess reason and free will, they must operate within their natural constraints. He suggests that adversity serves to strengthen character and sustain universal harmony. However, critics argue this view may dismiss social inequalities and human suffering.
Given these critiques, do you think Pope's vision still holds relevance today, especially in discussions about humanity's role within larger ecosystems?
Indeed, his emphasis on interconnectedness and humility remains pertinent in contemporary debates about humanity's place in nature and society. Yet, balancing this with advocating for social justice and progress is a critical challenge for modern thinkers.
Moving on, Pope's work promotes an optimistic view of the universe, asserting that all evils serve a divine purpose. How does he justify this perspective?
Pope argues that what we perceive as evil or suffering is not inherently flawed but rather integral to a harmonious divine plan. He proposes that human understanding is limited and thus we must trust in God's design encapsulated in the line, "Whatever is right." This theological optimism posits that adversity contributes to a greater good.
However, this viewpoint can seem dismissive of real human suffering. Critics like Voltaire have satirized it. How do you see this debate playing out, especially in light of modern philosophical thoughts?
Voltaire's Candide indeed critiques this optimism as naive, suggesting it overlooks the need for moral responsibility and social action. In today's context, while Pope's notion of hope and faith in a larger plan can be comforting, it risks undermining efforts to mitigate suffering and improve societal conditions.
So, how can we reconcile Pope's optimism with a proactive approach to addressing injustice?
It involves acknowledging the value in Pope's emphasis on hope and interconnectedness, while also advocating for critical inquiry and social responsibility. A balanced approach can inspire both spiritual solace and tangible efforts to address the inequities and challenges of our world.
Let's delve into Pope's critique of human pride. He warns against overestimating our understanding of the universe. How does this align with Enlightenment thought?
Pope critiques those who challenge divine justice or attempt to invert the laws of order. This reflects Enlightenment ideals of humility and reason, advocating for self-awareness. Yet it raises concerns about whether such caution stifles intellectual progress or challenges to authority.
A valid concern, especially since the Enlightenment also championed critical thinking. How do we balance humility with the pursuit of knowledge?
Balancing humility with intellectual curiosity is key. While Pope's caution against pride underscores the limits of human knowledge, it should not deter us from questioning and exploring. Encouraging a mindset of informed inquiry can foster both respect for divine order and human advancement.
Could you provide an example of how this balance might manifest in a practical context today?
Consider scientific advancements like genetic engineering. While we should remain humble about our understanding of complex biological systems, this shouldn't impede responsible innovation aimed at addressing pressing global challenges, such as food security or medical breakthroughs.
Finally, Pope identifies a duality between reason and self-love. How does he perceive these forces influencing human behavior?
Pope acknowledges reason and self-love as dual forces that can lead to virtue or vice depending on their application. This duality offers a nuanced view of human nature, suggesting that while these impulses can foster moral growth, they may also result in ethical conflicts if misaligned.
This seems to suggest a lack of practical guidance. How might individuals navigate these conflicting impulses effectively?
Navigating these impulses requires cultivating self-awareness and ethical reflection. By understanding the interplay between self-interest and rational thought, individuals can strive to align their actions with broader moral principles, fostering personal and collective well-being.
Looking ahead, how can this understanding inform modern ethical frameworks?
This understanding can enrich ethical frameworks by emphasizing the importance of balancing individual desires with communal responsibilities. Encouraging dialogue and empathy can help integrate self-love with reason, fostering more equitable and sustainable societal outcomes.
Dr. Rathod, Pope's concept of the great chain of being is so pivotal in an essay on man. Could you elaborate on how he envisions this universal hierarchy?
Certainly, Pope portrays the universe as a meticulously structured hierarchy where every element from rocks to angels has a designated place. This mirrors Enlightenment beliefs in order and reason. For example, he writes, "Say rather man as perfect as he ought," urging acceptance of one's position.
That's fascinating, yet some argue this deterministic view might oversimplify human experiences. Does Pope address any potential drawbacks of such rigid structures?
Indeed, while Pope advocates for accepting our place, critics argue that it possibly neglects individual struggles. However, Pope contends that everything, even suffering, contributes to a divine harmony, suggesting adversity has its purpose.
Does this imply Pope sees human questioning as futile?
In a sense, yes. Pope emphasizes humility, urging us to focus on understanding ourselves rather than challenging the divine order which might be beyond our comprehension. This reflects his view that self-awareness is key to realizing the harmony of the great chain.
Let's delve into how Pope explores human limitations. How does he balance the pursuit of knowledge with acceptance of our constraints?
Pope asserts that while humans have reason and free will, our intellectual and sensory capabilities fall short of grasping the divine's full scope. He famously advises, "The proper study of mankind is man," promoting introspection over cosmic inquiry.
Yet this approach seems to restrict human curiosity. Could it hinder progress?
That's a valid concern. However, Pope's intention isn't to stifle curiosity but to encourage a realistic understanding of our limits. He's warning against hubris, suggesting that overreaching can lead to misunderstanding the universe's true nature.
And how does this perspective resonate today?
It's quite relevant, especially in our age of rapid scientific advancement. Pope's emphasis on humility and self-awareness could guide ethical considerations in technology and science, reminding us of the importance of knowing our boundaries.
Moving to Pope's optimistic outlook, he suggests that what appears as evil serves a greater purpose. How does he justify this within his philosophical framework?
Pope argues that what we perceive as evil is a part of a larger, harmonious divine plan. He believes every event contributes to a greater good, captured in the line, "Whatever is right." This reflects his theological optimism and faith in divine wisdom.
Critics like Voltaire have challenged this view, labeling it simplistic. How does Pope respond to such critiques?
Pope acknowledges these critiques but maintains that human understanding is limited. He emphasizes that humility and faith are essential in accepting that we might not see the full picture. This perspective doesn't dismiss suffering but frames it within a broader, meaningful context.
And how does hope play into this narrative?
Hope is vital for Pope. It helps humans endure suffering, suggesting a future unity with God. His idea that hope springs eternal in the human breast underscores a belief in eventual justice and happiness, offering solace amid life's challenges.
In what ways do Pope's ideas on optimism and human limitations resonate with today's philosophical and ethical debates?
Pope's emphasis on interconnectedness and humility remains pertinent as we navigate complex global issues like climate change and technological ethics. His philosophy urges a balance between innovation and ethical responsibility.
Yet, isn't there a risk of his views being seen as too passive in face of societal challenges?
Absolutely. His ideas could foster discussions on sustainable living and equitable resource distribution, reminding us of our duty to respect and maintain the natural order. It's a call for thoughtful stewardship within the great chain.
Dr. Rathod, Pope presents the universe as a hierarchical system. How does he depict humanity's role within this great chain of being?
Pope envisions a universe where each entity has a divinely ordained place. Humans, he argues, should accept their position without trying to transcend it. This idea challenges the prideful notion that we can dominate or alter the cosmic order.
Is there an anecdote from Pope's era that illustrates this hierarchical view?
Indeed, in the 18th century many believed in a natural order governed by divine reason. For instance, the social stratification of the time was often justified using similar ideas, reflecting a wider acceptance of predetermined roles.
Yet some argue this outlook dismisses human suffering. How does Pope address such critiques?
Pope suggests that every part of the chain, including suffering, plays a role in universal harmony. However, critics point out that this view might oversimplify complex moral issues, ignoring the nuances of human experience.
Pope warns against human presumptuousness. How does he articulate this critique?
He argues that questioning divine intentions is a form of pride. For Pope, assuming we can understand God's plan is misguided. He uses the metaphor of attempting to invert the laws of order to illustrate the folly of such actions.
Can you recall a historical example that parallels this warning?
Certainly, the Enlightenment itself, which celebrated human reason, often faced criticism for overreaching. Figures like Voltaire satirized blind optimism, suggesting that not all human endeavors align with divine wisdom.
But doesn't this perspective potentially stifle intellectual progress?
It's a valid concern. While Pope promotes humility, critics argue that discouraging inquiry can hinder advancements. Balancing reverence for divine order with human curiosity remains a pertinent debate today.
Pope discusses the dual forces of self-love and reason. How do these shape human behavior according to his poem?
He sees self-love as a driving force for both virtue and vice, tempered by reason. Reason should guide us to balance our impulses, however, excessive pride can disrupt this harmony, leading to moral failings.
Is there a personal story from Pope's life that reflects this duality?
Pope himself faced criticism for his sharp wit and satirical works. His ability to balance self-expression with reasoned critique highlights the dual nature he describes.
Yet some argue his guidance lacks practicality. What do you make of this criticism?
It's a nuanced critique. While Pope outlines these forces, applying them requires self-awareness and context. Today, the challenge remains in translating abstract ideas into actionable moral frameworks.
Pope employs satire to critique pride. How does this approach enhance his message?
By portraying humans as darkly wise and rudely great, Pope highlights the absurdity of our arrogance. Satire serves as a mirror, reflecting our limitations and encouraging humility.
Could you share an example where this satirical lens was impactful?
Voltaire's Candide similarly uses satire to critique blind optimism. Such works resonate by mixing humor with critique, making complex philosophical ideas accessible and engaging.
However, can satire sometimes obscure the seriousness of the message?
That's a risk. While satire can trivialize, it also provokes thought. The challenge is ensuring the critique isn't lost in the humor, which requires skillful delivery and audience engagement.
Dr. Rathod, Alexander Pope's An Essay on Man posits a universe governed by divine design. How does Pope illustrate this optimism in the natural order?
Pope suggests that everything in the universe has a purpose even if it's beyond human comprehension. He famously states, "Whatever is right," indicating that every event, including suffering, contributes to a greater good. This idea aligns with Enlightenment ideals of rational order.
Indeed, but doesn't this also imply a passive acceptance of evil and suffering? Some might argue that this perspective could discourage proactive responses to injustice.
That's a valid concern. Critics like Voltaire argue that Pope's view dismisses real human suffering. However, Pope emphasizes trust in divine wisdom, urging humility in the face of our limited understanding.
As we consider the future, how might Pope's ideas influence modern philosophical or theological debates on the problem of evil?
In today's context, Pope's optimism could inspire discussions on finding meaning in adversity, encouraging a balance between faith and action to address moral dilemmas.
Let's delve into Pope's justification of evil. How does he argue that adversity serves a higher purpose within God's plan?
Pope sees adversity as integral to maintaining universal balance. He argues that what appears as evil helps fulfill God's harmonious design. For example, suffering might lead to personal growth or collective resilience.
Yet, isn't there a risk that such a view might lead to fatalism, potentially discouraging efforts to improve social conditions?
Certainly, some view Pope's perspective as overly simplistic. However, he advocates for a humble acceptance of our limitations within the great chain of being, which is more about understanding our place rather than promoting inaction.
Looking forward, how can this acceptance be reconciled with the need for social progress?
The challenge lies in fostering a nuanced understanding where faith in divine order coexists with active efforts to alleviate suffering, thus promoting both spiritual and societal advancement.
Dr. Rathod, Pope presents hope as a divine gift. How does this concept help humans endure suffering according to him?
Pope famously writes, "Hope springs eternal in the human breast," suggesting that hope offers solace and faith in ultimate justice. It's portrayed as a beacon guiding humanity through life's burdens toward future unity with God.
However, could this emphasis on hope overshadow the necessity for immediate action against injustice?
It's a double-edged sword. While hope provides comfort, critics argue it might lead to complacency. Pope's intention is not to negate action but to highlight hope as a source of spiritual strength that complements human efforts.
In a forward-looking sense, how might this dual role of hope shape contemporary views on resilience?
Hope can be seen as both a motivator and a stabilizer in modern times, encouraging individuals to pursue justice while maintaining faith in broader, positive outcomes.
Finally, let's explore Pope's use of irony to critique human pride. How does he employ this literary device effectively in his work?
Pope uses irony to expose humanity's exaggerated self-importance. He describes humans as darkly wise and rudely great, highlighting the gap between our self-image and actual limitations. This satirical approach underscores our ignorance of the universe's true nature.
Yet, doesn't this irony risk diminishing human aspirations and achievements?
While it may seem so, Pope's satire aims to deflate arrogance, not aspirations. He encourages humility and self-awareness, reminding us of our role within the divine order without dismissing our potential for growth.
Considering future implications, how might such an ironic perspective inform modern philosophical or ethical discussions?
This perspective invites a reflective dialogue on balancing ambition with humility, fostering an ethical framework that values progress while acknowledging our limitations in understanding the cosmos.
Dr. Rathod, in Alexander Pope's An Essay on Man, he explores the roles of self-love and reason. Can you explain how Pope views these concepts?
Certainly, Pope sees self-love as a fundamental, instinctual force driving human action, motivating us to seek pleasure and fulfill desires. It's like the engine of a car propelling us forward. On the flip side, reason acts like the steering wheel, guiding those impulses towards long-term goals and virtuous behavior.
So, self-love isn't inherently negative, but it requires guidance.
Exactly. Pope believes self-love can both inspire greatness and lead to vice depending on its alignment with reason. For instance, ambition fueled by self-love can drive innovation, but without reason it might devolve into greed.
How does this balance play out practically? Are there risks if one dominates the other?
Pope warns that when self-love overwhelms reason, it leads to destructive behaviors. Conversely, too much reliance on reason might result in a lack of passion, akin to a car stalled without fuel. Balance is key for personal and societal harmony.
Let's delve into the ruling passion Pope describes. What role does it play in his philosophy?
The ruling passion is an idea Pope introduces as a dominant desire unique to each individual. It's the central theme of one's life, guiding behavior. Imagine it as a compass that provides direction, but it requires reason to navigate effectively.
Could you give an example of how this ruling passion might manifest?
Sure, consider a philanthropist whose ruling passion is altruism. This passion, refined by reason, leads to generous deeds. Without reason, though, it might lead to self-neglect or financial ruin.
Is there a danger in letting the ruling passion dictate too much of one's life?
Indeed, if unchecked by reason, the ruling passion can lead to obsession or vice. Pope's point is that while passions are not inherently bad, they require the temperance of reason to be productive.
Pope's discussion of self-love extends to societal relations. How does he connect personal desires with the common good?
Pope suggests that true self-love, when guided by reason, aligns with societal welfare. It's akin to Adam Smith's later idea that individual self-interest can benefit society if regulated by moral principles. It's about harmonizing private and public interests.
But doesn't self-love often lead to negative traits like vanity or pride?
Pope acknowledges these risks, critiquing excesses of self-love, yet he argues it's also necessary for motivation and survival. The challenge lies in ensuring self-love fosters both personal fulfillment and social harmony.
How can this balance be achieved in a community setting?
Through education and ethical frameworks that encourage individuals to use reason as a guide. By promoting values that align personal ambitions with communal benefits, society can thrive.
Finally, Dr. Rathod, how do Pope's ideas fit within the broader Enlightenment context?
Pope's work aligns with Enlightenment ideals that prioritize reason as a tool for understanding human nature. However, he doesn't dismiss emotions. Instead, he acknowledges their role in shaping behavior, advocating for a balanced approach.
Does this suggest that reason alone is insufficient for understanding human nature?
Precisely, Pope argues for a dual approach, recognizing that both reason and emotion are essential. It's like using both eyes for depth perception. One without the other results in a limited view.
Looking forward, how can Pope's insights inform contemporary discussions on human nature?
Pope's emphasis on balance can guide modern debates on emotional intelligence and rational decision-making, encouraging a holistic understanding of human behavior and development.
Dr. Rathod, Alexander Pope in an essay on man highlights science as a tool to understand nature. How does he view this relationship with the divine?
Pope acknowledges science as a means for humans to decipher the natural world, which he considers part of God's grand creation. He sees scientific progress as a testament to both human ingenuity and divine design, much like a craftsman revealing the complex beauty of his masterpiece.
That's fascinating. However, Pope warns about the potential arrogance stemming from scientific power. Can you elaborate on this tension?
Certainly, Pope cautions that with scientific achievements comes the danger of hubris, where humans might presume to imitate God or claim to grasp the complete divine wisdom. It's a reminder of our limitations, akin to a child thinking they understand a complex adult world.
In our modern context, how do we reconcile this with the technological advancements that seem to push these boundaries further?
We must navigate with humility and ethical considerations, ensuring that our quest for knowledge does not overshadow our moral and spiritual understanding. Similar to balancing on a tightrope, one misstep could lead to ethical pitfalls.
Let's delve into how Pope views religion as a counterbalance to scientific pride. How does he articulate this in his work?
Pope argues that while science expands human understanding, it is limited. Ultimate wisdom rests with God. He warns against the prideful belief that science alone can unravel the mysteries of existence, urging a recognition of our place within the divine order.
In this light, how does Pope's perspective address the potential conflicts between science and religion?
He doesn't dismiss scientific inquiry but emphasizes that without moral and spiritual guidance, it risks debasing the world's spiritual essence. It's like having a powerful car without a steering wheel, capable but directionless without faith.
Considering ongoing debates about science and faith, how might Pope's views inform current discourse?
His work suggests a harmonious coexistence, where faith provides the moral and ethical framework within which scientific exploration can ethically flourish, ensuring we remain grounded as we innovate.
Pope's work often embodies the Enlightenment's emphasis on reason while maintaining a Christian framework. How does he navigate this tension?
Pope acknowledges rational inquiry's role but critiques its potential to undermine spiritual understanding if pursued without moral restraint. He argues that while science seeks empirical truths, it cannot address metaphysical questions of purpose or morality.
Could you provide a practical example of this tension in real-world scenarios?
Consider climate change. Science provides data and predictions, but moral and spiritual frameworks guide how we respond. Pope would urge using both reason and faith to navigate such challenges.
As we look to the future, how can Pope's insights guide the intersection of science and spirituality?
His nuanced approach suggests that embracing both rational inquiry and spiritual humility is essential for addressing contemporary global issues, much like balancing two sides of a scale to maintain equilibrium.
Pope's stance is often seen as ambiguous. How does this ambiguity reflect broader Enlightenment debates on reason and faith?
Pope praises scientific contributions yet warns against their overreach into spiritual domains. This duality reflects Enlightenment questions about whether reason and faith can coexist or are inherently oppositional.
How does this ambiguity play out in his work, and what does it mean for readers today? Looking forward, how might we use Pope's insights to navigate current debates on science and faith?
His work encourages a balanced approach, advocating for a dialogue between science and religion to foster a more comprehensive understanding of our place in the world, much like a symphony where diverse instruments create harmony.
Dr. Rathod, Alexander Pope's An Essay on Man captures the complexities of the Enlightenment by intertwining science and religion. How does Pope navigate this duality in his work?
Pope acknowledges the progress science has made in understanding nature, which he views as part of divine creation. He credits science for enhancing human ingenuity, yet warns against its potential to breed arrogance, like humans assuming they can fully comprehend divine wisdom.
It's fascinating how he balances this admiration with caution. Would you say his perspective resonates with the broader Enlightenment debate over faith versus reason?
Absolutely, the Enlightenment was marked by this tension. Pope's work reflects this by urging caution against letting science overshadow spiritual and moral understanding, suggesting that ultimate knowledge still rests with God.
Some might argue that Pope's view limits scientific exploration. How do you see this tension between rational inquiry and spiritual faith evolving today?
In modern times, there's a greater push for integration, with fields like bioethics encouraging dialogue between scientific advancements and moral considerations, much like Pope's call for balance.
Pope's work often returns to the theme of humanity's limitations. How does he convey the idea that humans should recognize their place within God's creation?
He uses the metaphor of the great chain of being to position humans below divine wisdom, emphasizing humility. This hierarchical view suggests that while humans can explore nature, they must not presume to understand God's grand design fully.
Yet, in today's context, such a hierarchical view might be seen as restrictive. How do we reconcile this with modern views on human potential?
Indeed, today's world values human autonomy and potential, often challenging traditional hierarchies. However, Pope's caution against hubris remains relevant, reminding us of the moral responsibilities that accompany our advancements.
With ongoing debates on AI and biotechnology, how might Pope's insights apply to our current ethical frameworks?
Pope would likely advocate for humility and caution, ensuring that our technological pursuits do not lead us to forget ethical boundaries and the broader spiritual questions that science alone cannot answer.
Dr. Rathod, Pope's use of gendered language in An Essay on Man has drawn criticism. How does this reflect the cultural biases of his time?
Pope often uses man to represent all humanity, sidelining women from philosophical discourse. This reflects 18th century norms, where men were seen as the primary agents of reason and morality, overshadowing women's intellectual roles.
Such exclusionary language can be off-putting to modern audiences. How should contemporary readers approach these biases in historical texts?
It's crucial to engage critically, recognizing these biases while appreciating the text's historical context. This allows for a deeper understanding and informed discussions about inclusivity in philosophical debates.
Considering today's emphasis on diversity, how might Pope's arguments be reinterpreted for a broader audience?
By re-examining his ideas through a lens of inclusivity, we can expand his insights to encompass a wider array of experiences, thus enriching the philosophical dialogue for today's diverse audiences.
Reflecting on Pope's work, how can we balance appreciating its historical context with ensuring its relevance for today's readers?
Understanding the historical context is key. Pope's insights into human nature and the interplay of science and religion remain significant, but we must also address the limitations of his gendered language and exclusivity. By incorporating diverse perspectives, we can frame Pope's work within a broader context, encouraging students to critically analyze both its timeless themes and its historical biases.
Looking ahead, what role do you see historical texts like Pope's playing in contemporary discussions on ethics and philosophy?
These texts serve as a foundation, providing a lens to examine past debates. They can inspire contemporary discourse by highlighting ongoing ethical questions, encouraging a blend of traditional wisdom with modern insights.
Whatever is right, suggests a divinely ordained plan. Dr. Rathod, how does Pope reconcile the existence of evil with a benevolent God?
Pope argues that what we perceive as imperfections are essential parts of a larger divine design. This reflects Leibniz's idea that we live in the best of all possible worlds. For example, natural disasters, though tragic, might contribute to Earth's ecological balance from a broader perspective.
However, critics argue this perspective seems dismissive of human suffering. How does Pope address these concerns?
Pope suggests that our limited perceptions make us unable to grasp God's complete plan. He implies that what appears as discord is actually harmony on a cosmic scale, a balance we're too finite to understand. But this view can seem fatalistic, discouraging efforts to address suffering.
Looking forward, how can this philosophy be applied in modern contexts of inequality and social justice?
While Pope's optimism encourages trust in divine wisdom, it must be balanced with human responsibility. The challenge is to maintain faith in a larger order while actively working to alleviate suffering and injustice in our immediate environment.
Pope's line, "The proper study of mankind is man," critiques human pride. Dr. Rathod, why does Pope emphasize self-understanding over divine inquiry?
Pope believes humans should focus on their own nature and limitations rather than overextending into divine realms. He argues that our finite understanding can lead to confusion if we try to scan God's plans. For instance, the Enlightenment era's emphasis on reason sometimes led to overconfidence in human capability.
Does this mean Pope discourages intellectual inquiry altogether?
Not at all. Instead, he advocates for humility and self-awareness. By understanding our strengths and weaknesses, we can achieve a more balanced and virtuous life. Yet some critics argue this view could limit human potential by discouraging exploration beyond self-understanding.
In today's context, how can this balance be achieved?
Balancing reason with humility is key. In our quest for knowledge, we must also recognize our limitations and ethical responsibilities. This ensures that our advancements contribute positively to humanity and align with a broader moral framework.
In all are but parts of one stupendous whole, Pope discusses the interconnectedness of the universe. Dr. Rathod, how does this idea fit into the great chain of being?
Pope sees the universe as a hierarchy with each element having a specific role. Humans are part of this chain, not its center. This interconnectedness implies that even perceived chaos contributes to universal harmony. For example, predator-prey dynamics maintain ecological balance, reflecting this cosmic order.
Could this interconnectedness imply a deterministic worldview, leaving little room for individual agency?
Pope acknowledges human limitations in comprehending the stupendous whole, which can seem deterministic. However, he emphasizes moral responsibility within one's role. Critics argue that this can restrict human initiative, but Pope's perspective encourages respect for the natural order.
How can this understanding of interconnectedness inform our actions today?
Recognizing our role within a larger system can guide sustainable and ethical actions. It encourages us to consider the broader impact of our decisions, fostering a sense of stewardship and responsibility towards maintaining the balance of our environment.
Considering Pope's views on divine order and human nature, how relevant are these ideas in addressing today's societal challenges?
Pope's emphasis on humility and understanding one's role can be vital in today's world, where rapid technological advancements often outpace ethical considerations. His philosophy encourages introspection and ethical responsibility, ensuring that progress aligns with moral values.
Looking ahead, how can Pope's ideas inspire future generations?
They can foster a mindset that balances innovation with ethical considerations. By understanding our place in the universe and acting with humility, future generations can work towards a harmonious existence that respects both human and environmental needs.
Dr. Rathod, Pope's line, "All are but parts of one stupendous whole," captures his vision of a divinely governed universe. Could you elaborate on how this reflects interconnectedness?
Certainly, Pope portrays the universe as a grand cosmic chain, each link essential and divinely purposed. It critiques human arrogance by reminding us of our role within this vast, interconnected system. For instance, he suggests that humanity's attempts to rise above their station disrupt this harmony.
This brings to mind the counterargument that such a view might limit human ambition, portraying it negatively as arrogance. How does Pope reconcile this tension?
Pope encourages humility, not stagnation. He contends that recognizing our place doesn't stifle ambition but channels it towards fulfilling our divine role. It's about acceptance, not resignation. In today's terms, it's like emphasizing teamwork over individualism for greater good.
Looking ahead, what can modern society learn from Pope's message about interconnectedness?
In our globalized world, this message underscores the importance of collective responsibility. Understanding our interconnectedness can drive actions towards sustainability and equity, aligning with Pope's timeless wisdom of universal harmony.
The line, "Say not man's imperfect, heaven in fault," is a profound statement. Dr. Rathod, how does Pope use this to address human imperfection?
Pope argues that humans are perfectly suited to their divine role, challenging the idea that perceived imperfections are flaws. He suggests these are merely reflections of our limited understanding, akin to a child not grasping complex adult issues.
But what about the critique that accepting imperfections could lead to complacency or justify injustices?
That's a valid concern. Pope's message isn't about complacency but about recognizing our limitations within a broader divine plan. It's about striving for improvement within our role, much like improving a skill without changing the game's rules.
How can this perspective guide future approaches to human development and self-improvement?
By fostering a mindset that values growth and learning within our capabilities, we can embrace change positively. It encourages a balanced view of progress, aligning personal growth with communal and environmental well-being.
Pope's phrase, "Presume not God to scan," warns against human arrogance in understanding divine intentions. How does this critique apply to our modern context, Dr. Rathod?
Pope's warning against overestimating human intellect is timeless. With rapid technological advances, there's a tendency to assume we can solve all mysteries. Pope reminds us of our intellectual humility, much like a scientist acknowledging the current limits of their research.
Yet, some argue that this view might inhibit scientific inquiry or critical thinking. How does Pope address this?
Pope doesn't oppose inquiry, he advocates for its thoughtful application. He sees value in reason but cautions against using it to challenge the divine. It's similar to respecting ethical boundaries in scientific exploration.
What insight can we draw for the future of science and religion's coexistence?
A forward-looking insight would be fostering dialogue where both fields respect their domains. Integrating scientific advancements with ethical and spiritual considerations can lead to holistic progress that honors Pope's vision of balance.
Finally, let's discuss self-love and reason to one end aspire. Dr. Rathod, how does Pope view these forces as guiding human behavior?
Pope sees self-love as the driving force of human actions while reason regulates it. When balanced, they lead to virtue. For instance, self-love might drive ambition, but reason ensures it aligns with moral principles, much like a car needing both speed and steering.
What lessons can future leaders take from this philosophical approach?
Leaders can learn to foster environments where self-interest aligns with collective well-being. Encouraging ethical ambition and responsible innovation can lead to societal progress that embodies Pope's vision of a balanced, virtuous humanity.
Dr. Rathod, Alexander Pope's line, "Hope springs eternal in the human breast," suggests an enduring optimism. How does this reflect his view on human nature and divine order?
Pope sees hope as a divine gift that sustains humans through life's uncertainties. He portrays it as a virtue that encourages belief in future happiness despite our inability to fully comprehend God's plan. For instance, he writes about the soul's longing for an afterlife which offers solace amid life's challenges.
However, isn't there an irony in this hope? Pope also suggests humans are never is, but always to be blessed, which implies that fulfillment is elusive. How does this irony fit into his broader philosophical exploration?
Indeed, there's a paradox here. While hope drives us forward, Pope subtly critiques our constant yearning for what we can never fully attain. This reflects Enlightenment ideals where human struggles are acknowledged, yet hope ties us to a larger divine order. It's a reminder of our perpetual pursuit of an unattainable future.
In modern times, hope springs eternal is often used in secular contexts. How does its original religious connotation differ from today's usage, and what lessons can we draw from this shift?
Today, it's a symbol of resilience against adversity, but Pope originally linked hope to faith, grounding it in religious thought. This shift highlights a broader societal move towards secularism, yet it also underscores hope's universal role in fostering resilience. We should remember its roots in faith and divine wisdom.
Let's delve into Pope's critique of human arrogance. In Superior Beings, when of late they saw a mortal man unfold all nature's law, he seems to mock humanity's pride in scientific progress. Could you elaborate on this irony?
Pope uses irony to highlight the hubris of humanity. While celebrating scientific achievements, humans often forget their knowledge is incomplete compared to divine wisdom. The superior beings watching with amusement emphasize our misplaced pride, suggesting that our intellectual triumphs are trivial in the grand scheme of things.
Given the Enlightenment context, how does Pope balance admiration for scientific progress with caution against over-reliance on reason?
Pope acknowledges the value of science but warns against elevating it above spiritual matters. Science should complement, not replace, faith. By reminding us of our place in the great chain of being, Pope argues for humility over prideful overreach, stressing that reason alone can't answer existential questions.
In today's world, science often takes precedence over faith. How can Pope's critique inform our approach to balancing these domains?
Pope's insights are timeless. While embracing scientific progress, we should remain humble, recognizing our limitations. His critique encourages a balanced worldview where science serves to enhance, not overshadow, our spiritual and moral understanding. This balance is crucial to maintaining a holistic perspective on life.
Moving on to Pope's depiction of humanity's place in nature, the lines, "fixed like a plant on his peculiar spot," evoke a vivid metaphor. How does this image encapsulate Pope's philosophy on human existence?
Pope uses the metaphor of a plant to illustrate humans' rootedness in their specific roles within the great chain of being. Just as plants are bound to their environment, humans are confined to their natural place and must accept their limitations. This imagery underscores life's cycles, emphasizing our connection to a larger ecological system.
Pope also mentions born but to die, and reasoning but to err. How does this paradoxical view shape his critique of human pride?
This line highlights the paradox of human existence. Despite our reason capabilities, we are fallible and mortal. By comparing us to plants, Pope diminishes human self-importance, warning against prideful attempts to transcend our natural place. It's a call for humility and acceptance of our role within divine design.
In what ways can this philosophical stance inform contemporary discussions on human impact on the environment?
Pope's emphasis on interconnectedness and humility is highly relevant today. As we face ecological challenges, his message reminds us of the importance of respecting our place in nature. By recognizing our limits and responsibilities, we can foster more sustainable interactions with the environment, aligning with Pope's vision of harmony in the natural order.
Finally, let's explore how Pope navigates the tension between reason and faith. During the Enlightenment, these were often seen as opposing forces. How does Pope's work reconcile this dichotomy?
Pope acknowledges the power of reason but insists it must be tempered by faith. His work suggests that while reason is a tool for understanding the world, it's limited in scope. Faith provides the moral compass and humility needed to navigate life beyond the reach of empirical knowledge. This reconciliation is central to his philosophical stance.
Some might argue that prioritizing faith undermines scientific inquiry. How would Pope respond to this counterargument?
Pope would argue that faith doesn't undermine science but rather complements it. He sees faith as providing the ethical framework within which scientific inquiry should operate. By accepting divine mystery, we can pursue knowledge responsibly, ensuring that our intellectual endeavors align with broader moral and spiritual truths. Pope's approach offers valuable insights for today's challenges. In a world driven by technological advancement, his emphasis on humility and ethical considerations is crucial. By balancing reason with faith, we can navigate complex ethical dilemmas, ensuring that progress serves humanity's greater good rather than undermining it.